What is up everyone, Movie Worm back again with another video, and today is going to be another end of month vlog where I talk about all the things that I watched in the month of April 2024. Some of these are on Blu-ray, some of them are on streaming, and some of them are at the cinema, of course. Now let's just get into it now with the first thing that I watched, and that is the Omen remake from 2006. Now I had never seen this film. I kind of stayed away from it when it came out. I don't know why at the time, but I was watching all of the Omen films leading up to the First Omen. I actually reviewed them all on my horror channel, including this one. So if you guys want to go and see that, I'll leave the link down below to the horror channel. But this was a first time watch for me. And this movie is well directed. It has a great cast with Julia Stiles and Liev Schreiber. It's got Pete Postlethwaite in there. David Thewlis, who I love. And it's a very watchable film. However, it just does everything that the original movie did. This is basically a shot-for-shot remake, and I kind of hate it when remakes do that, because I feel like you've got to do something a little bit different to make it stand out. I mean, what is the point in remaking the same film shot for shot when the original is what people are always going to go back to? I just didn't see the point in that. The kid in this as well wasn't as good as Harvey Stephens from the original film, in my opinion. I think Harvey Stephens had that look in his eye to say, yeah, he could be the devil's kid, him. But yeah, not really this time. One thing that I think did improve was Mrs. Baylock. Now, I loved the character of Mrs. Baylock in the original film. I thought she was fantastic. She's probably the most underrated character in that movie. But Mia Farrow is an absolute elite actress, and somehow she did enhance that character a little bit here. This is the one thing I may prefer from the remake over the original, even though I love Mrs. Baylock in the original. And some may say that's sacrilege or whatever, but I really enjoyed Mia Farrow in this film and everything I've seen in him. And there's one scene that they do change a little bit, where instead of pushing someone out the window, they inject an air bubble into her. It's the same outcome, of course, but that scene is quite good. But most of this movie is the same damn thing. So yeah, I'm always going to go back to the original. Don't think I'll be watching this again anytime soon, but glad to have finally seen it. So that is the Omen remake. Next up is going to be a movie that I talked about last month, and I did actually rewatch it again to make sure that I wasn't seeing things that everyone else sort of seeing, and that is Friday the 13th, Part 4, the final chapter. Now, a lot of people hail this as one of the best Friday the 13th films, but for me, I just don't see that at all. I definitely enjoyed Friday the 13th, Part 1, 2, and 3 more than this one. I just don't get it. I don't. However, it did improve a little bit more on rewatch this time, but only very slightly. This is nowhere near my top of the Friday the 13th ranking. I'm going to talk about a lot more of these movies in this video, guys, because I was carrying on my Friday the 13th series watch, because I've started to watch them all, and I'm going to have a live stream coming up on the horror channel with a few friends, and we're going to go over the whole franchise. This one, I don't know what I think Crispin Glover has got to be the worst character in all of these movies that I've seen so far. It's mad that he went on to star in a big franchise, Back to the Future, and he's quite a big name in the acting world. But here, man, some of the dancing he's doing, some of the dialogue he does, I mean, he's just so cringe in this movie. There's a couple of good kills. I like the one where the girl was in the boat and Jason just comes and, you know, I think he stabbed her through the boat or something, or put the knife through. I can't quite remember the full kill now. There's a lot of kills in these movies, guys, and I've watched them all, but that one was quite awesome. Yeah, it was fine. It's fine. It's just is what it is. These are the easiest movies in the world to watch, I've got to say. They're just over in 90 minutes, and you do have a fun time with them. I just don't think this one is one of the best Friday the 13th films, in my opinion. It's okay, though. So that is Friday the 13th, Part 4, the final chapter. Next up, we have Friday the 13th, Part 5, The New Blood. Now, I gotta say, guys, this is probably not a very good film, in all honesty, but I had a lot of fun with it. There's a lot of wacky characters in this movie, like the old woman Ethel, I think her name is, and her man-baby son, who are just riding around on motorbikes and threatening everyone. She even threatens police officers at one point in this movie. No, there's also the guy who gets his asshole stung by the enchiladas. And he's singing all weird songs in the toilet and just having a conversation with his girlfriend while he's like on the toilet having a shit. It's just so many weird parts of this movie, and there is a killer reveal at the end of this film, because this film is not actually Jason committing these murders, it's someone else, and it's the strangest killer reveal I've ever seen. I knew who it was going in because I'd heard it before, and I hadn't, this film is just not no memory to me whatsoever. I haven't watched these movies since VHS days, and you can tell that the movie is kind of focusing on this character early on to say, ooh, who could he be later on? It's just, it's so ridiculous who the killer is in this film. But yeah, I had a fun time with it. The biggest problem with this movie is a lot of the kills are just off screen. Like, something will happen and it'll just cut away. It does have the most kills in any Friday the 13th movie, I believe. But yeah, I mean, it's just, it's fine. It's fun. The characters are what make it fun. Well, not really the kills, but there is a lot of them in this movie. It's just a shame a lot of them are cut away. I don't know if they had a problem with the MPAA over in America, who basically said you've got to cut the movie because the people are rioting in the streets because of these movies being too violent. I think it was something to do with that. But yeah, it's a shame, because if these movies went for the full-on gore, I think they could have been way better. But a lot of them do seem to do this same thing. But Friday the 13th Part 5 suffers from this the most in the editing killing department there. So that is Friday the 13th Part 5, The New Blood. Next up we have Boogie Night. I think this is the Warner Archive edition, I think. 100 Years of Warner Brothers. It's a nice little set there. You know, you got the Blu-ray and some postcards and stuff. Now, I showed this off in my latest Blu-ray 4K update video. And it's a movie that I've seen a lot of back on the TV and stuff when I was younger, but I never actually sat there and watched the whole movie. And a lot of people rave about this film, so I finally picked it up. I was with Andy from Forgotten World of Movies. We went to town and he picked this up, and I went, "Oh, where'd you get that? I need to grab one of them." And it was only like £20, so it was a nice little bargain. And I really enjoyed this film. This is directed by Paul Thomas Anderson. I believe he only directed this movie when he was like 27. Now that is some confidence to take on such a heavy subject matter in the porn industry, and the way he directs this movie. I mean, man, you can tell this guy has got a lot of talent at such a young age. I mean, he directed Boogie Night and he was like 8 years younger than I am. I mean, I'm sitting here making YouTube videos, but yeah, he directed the shit out of this film. Some great music in this movie, great characters. And I loved the delve into the industry of all these characters just having fun. There's one scene that is very, very long in this movie where it all takes place at Burt Reynolds' house, who is like the director of these porn movies. And everyone just seems to be having a great time. It's such a good 25-minute scene there where you just get to know all these characters and stuff. And Burt Reynolds, man, I didn't realise how cool that guy was, but he's great in this. Great cast all around on Shadow. Heather Graham as Roller Girl, Mark Wahlberg, of course. You know, I just thought this movie was great. Yeah, I love the actress in this, and her name has just escaped me. Why? Oh my god, she's in bloody Hannibal. I'm gonna have to find it. Bear with me, guys. Bear with me. Julianne Moore. Oh my god, I hate it when names go out my head. She's one of my favourite actresses. She was great in this as well. So yeah, great film. I really enjoyed it. And now I will say the last hour of the movie kind of goes downhill a little bit. Only a little bit. It's just because it starts to become a little bit depressing and characters are on the downfall. And after spending so much time with them, I kind of hated that. I think Goodfellas suffers from this as well in the last 20 minutes. I mean, that film would probably be a perfect 10 for me if it wasn't for that last 20 minutes. I understand that you've kind of got to go down that path to see the downfall of the characters. But I feel like it loses a bit of the fun vibe. And it's the same with Goodfellas. It's the same here. The fun vibe sort of filters out the movie as these characters go on the downfall. So it's still a great film, though. And I'm going to give it my older release of the month. Glad to have finally seen this one. That is Boogie Nights. Next up, we have The First Omen, which I seen at the cinema, and this is not going to be my new release of the month. Look, I thought this movie was okay. A lot of people were raving about this film, but I just do not see why. Now, there's some great performances in there from Nell Tiger Free and stuff. The woman who directed this, it was her directional debut. Really sorry, cannot remember her name for the life of me. I'm really sorry. She directed it quite well in certain parts, and it's a prequel movie that you can watch and then go and watch The Omen directly after it, because it does lead into that movie nicely. However, I think this movie suffers a lot from bad lighting. I mean, like, that's why I said some of it is directed nicely. There is bad lighting, which we get in a lot of horror movies these days. The movie isn't very scary to me, and a lot of it was a bit of a slog. Now, this movie is quite long. Not long, it's a couple of hours, but it just seems an eternity to get there. Now, I don't mind slow, built-up tension, but when we finally got to all that, I just didn't really care too much. And my biggest problem with this movie is, if you've seen The Omen 3, you know how Damien's path ends. So any climactic ending that this movie went for, any hard-hitting moments, any big out there things where it's going to lead into Damien being born, I just thought, does it even matter? If you've seen The Omen 3, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So, for me, yeah, not one of my favourite horror movies of the year or anything. I thought this was pretty average. But I'm excited to see what the director can do in future. And Nell Tiger put in a great performance. So that is The First Omen. Next up, we have Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives. And I've got to say, I think up to now, this is my favourite Friday the 13th film. Mainly because of the two central characters in this movie. You've got Tommy Doyle, he's a little bit older now. And Megan, the other character, the love interest. There's a bit of a romance going on there. And she is a fun character to be around. So that was the main positive for me in this movie. A lot of these movies just have dumb arsehole characters. There were some good kills in there as well. I thought Jason was quite awesome in this movie, just going around beating the shit out of everyone. I liked how it kind of went into the town a little bit there, and there's a bit of tension between the police officers, the sheriff, and other characters like Tommy Doyle, and they just don't believe a word he says. Kind of like the mayor and stuff in Jaws, I suppose. That same sort of angle, if you like, but not as clever. But yeah, I watched this one years ago on DVD, and I remember really liking it. And yeah, it still holds up. This is it probably is my favourite Friday the 13th film, to be honest. It's a solid sequel and gets the franchise picked back up again there. So there's an awesome shot in this as well, where this sort of van turns over and Jason stood on the top of it. Thought that looked cool as fuck. But yeah, really enjoy Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives. So yeah, that is Part 6 of Friday the 13th. Next up, we have Friday the 13th, Part 7, The New Blood. Now, this one is, I don't think I've ever seen this one. This is one that just I have no memory of whatsoever. And this one was fine. I like the whole Carrie aspect, where they're trying to have this girl with telekinesis powers to match up against Jason there. And I like it when the franchise tries to do something different like that. She was an okay character. She had a few little problems here and there. And she's got this doctor in the movie who's one of the biggest slime balls I've ever seen in a horror film. Man, he was just a total arsehole. He's always shouting at her and stuff like that. And it's like, aren't you there to help her? Well, yeah, I mean, again, there's a lot of side characters who you just don't really care for in this movie. It's the same shit. I mean, there's a lot of these Friday the 13th movies that just feel exactly the same, apart from one little thing here or there, and this one is a girl with superpowers. So yeah, it was okay. It is what it is. I mean, they're the easiest films to watch in the world, because you just watch them and have a fun time, and then you're in and out, and you're getting the same thing over and over. So that is Friday the 13th, Part 7, The New Blood. Next up, I watched Civil War from Alex Garland. Now, a lot of people have been raving about this movie too, but I don't know, man. This one just was fine. Nothing more to me. This is not really an action-packed spectacle like they advertised it. That's exactly what I thought I was getting going in, but it's not really that at all. Now, there are some war type action scenes in the movie, of course, but it really focuses on these central characters and Kirsten Dunst and this young girl who wants to who looks up to her and wants to come on this road trip with her and her other photographic friends, journalist friends, and see how they do it, because, you know, she looks up to it and she wants to be the next big war photojournalist, basically. And they just get caught up in all sorts of gunfire and stuff and explosions. But it's basically just them taking pictures. I don't think this takes a political stance on either side of American politics. I don't know anything about American politics anyway, but it didn't feel like it was forcing anything down my throat. It's just a movie about how war journalism works. Now, my problem with this is the marketing, really. They did sell me something I thought I was getting instead. Also, Kirsten Dunst is miserable as fuck throughout this movie. Now, some will argue that she's meant to be doing that because she's gone through all this war and seen so many bad things in her life, and I get that. But it's not nice to hang around with her for 105 minutes or whatever what this movie was. Just like this all the way through. And, you know, I can't really get behind characters like that. Now, people may say I'm talking shit there, and that is fine because that's what she's meant to be. But yeah, I just like, oh my God, crack a smile, girl. So yeah, unfortunately, didn't love this one. The scene with Jesse Plemons is definitely the best scene in the entire film. That guy is just in fucking everything now, isn't he? And he can really turn himself into any character he wants. And he is quite terrifying in this movie. So yeah, I did like that part of the film for sure. It's fine. It's okay. Just go into it knowing that you're not getting into something that you think you are. So that is Civil War. Next up, we have Friday the 13th Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. And I remember liking this when I watched it on VHS back in the day. But I've got to say, this is probably the worst Friday the 13th film up to now. It feels very B-movie-esque. I mean, you can tell this one is just cheaply made. It's got a headmaster in there who's in charge of all these kids who are on this boat going to Manhattan, and he's a total arsehole, even bigger arsehole than the Doctor in Part 7. The movie hardly takes place in New York. It's all on a boat for the first hour, and then we go to New York, and I believe some of these films are actually filmed in Chicago. I will say, though, this has got one of the best death scenes in the entire franchise, where this kid who's a boxer is just swinging at Jason 100 times, and he gets tired, and then Jason just punches him once, and his head decapitates him, and his head rolls into a bin. I thought that was absolutely hilarious. And there's also a scene where Jason just kicks fuck out of this boom box, and all these people go, "Hey, what are you doing?" He just takes his mask off, and they all just go, "Okay, man, it's fine." But yeah, again, a lot of the kills do seem to be off screen again, and that's my biggest problem with this franchise. I wish they could have just went all out with the gore. There are some creative kills, of course, in some of these movies. I don't know if the franchise went on that they kind of had to cut it a little bit more, but yeah, the characters in this as well. That girl with the guitar, man, fuck me. Oh, I just didn't like her at all. Yeah, it's not a very good Friday the 13th film. This one is probably bottom of my ranking so far. So it's Friday the 13th Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. Next up, I watched The Assembly. Now, this is something a little bit different for me, but my friend Terry in work, he's a big comic book film fan and stuff, but he said to me, look, I watched this thing on the iPlayer, go and watch it. It's 30 minutes long, and it's Martin Sheen basically getting interviewed by a bunch of autistic people. And he said, I laughed, I cried, I just thought it was amazing. So I said, okay, I'm going to watch it. So I went home. It's called The Assembly. I went home and put this thing on, and the great thing about this is these people just have no filter. These autistic people, they just ask him the craziest shit. They just don't care. And one of them will say, like, the first question he gets asked is, what do you feel about dating a woman who's, you know, way younger than you? And he's just like put on the spot. But I think some of the questions that he gets asked with the answers are really funny. Some of them are quite powerful. Some of them are emotional. Some of them he's just kind of stuck. And one of them even says, oh, dodging your way around the question there. I thought some of these people with the autism and stuff, I thought they were really cool people. They were people I would like to be around because it was just such a fun 30 minutes. My son, we think he's got autism. The health visitor says, yeah, there's something definitely there. But this program filled me with a bit of joy, to be honest. And I just know that he's probably going to have, like, he's got a personality anyway. He's 2 years old, but I wouldn't swap him for the world. And it's just nice to know that these people they just get on in life, they can be around everyone. They're fine. They're normal people like us. It's just, they've got autism, but it is what it is. And Martin Sheen afterwards actually said that this was the best interview that he'd ever had, because interviews are usually boring, but this one wasn't. It was actually really fun. And you know what, guys? I highly recommend you giving this a go, because it was such a fun time. Just, it fills your heart. It really does. It gives a great insight into autism itself. But yeah, Martin Sheen, man, he just really handled this very well. I thought he was great with these people with the autism and stuff, and it's just a real great 30 minutes of TV to watch. It really is. It's on the BBC iPlayer. It's called The Assembly, so definitely check that out. Next up, I watched Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. Now, I bought this in the Arrow sale last month. I've been intending to pick it up for a while, and this was such a great movie. I had a great time with this film. It's about Elvira, this character who, her aunt dies, and she goes to the will, basically, and she gets left this house and stuff, and her brother-in-law is there. Was it? Oh, yeah, her brother-in-law, is it? Yeah, and he expects that he's going to get everything, basically, and he gets left nothing, and he really wants to get the house back and everything off Elvira, and he wants to get this... Oh, no, I think he wants to get this magical book off her, and she left it to Elvira, basically, and that's all he wants to get, because he can become this magical, powerful sorcerer or whatever it is. But Elvira makes a lot of friends in this new neighborhood that she's been given this house in, and it's sort of her against the brother-in-law, basically. I had a really fun time with this. I thought this was such a funny movie. Elvira was such a great character, and this is just a real fun comedy from the 80s. It's got 80s written all over it, but even though this was a first time watch for me, it's not like required nostalgia. I still had a great time with it. So yeah, it's a little bit of a different movie. It's got a little bit of gothic feel to it, of course, but yeah, really great time. Yeah, I had a fun time with it. That is Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. Next up, I watched Wicked Little Letters. Now, this is about Jessie Buckley's character, who is neighbours with Olivia Colman. And Olivia Colman, they have a falling out, and Olivia Colman starts to get all these letters delivered to her that basically are insulting her in the most horrible of ways, and Jessie Buckley gets blamed for this, and she is about to go to court and everything, and the whole town is against her, basically, and they're all sticking up for Olivia Colman, and it's basically about the mysterious person who is sending these letters, because it isn't really Jessie Buckley who's sending these letters, and it all seems like a little bit of a setup. Now, I'm not going to get too much into it, but I thought this was a really fun comedy drama, British comedy drama there. Great performances all around. Timothy Spall is in this film as Olivia Colman's husband, and he is such an asshole, man. He's horrible in this movie. Some of the letters that get sent to Olivia Colman, they're horrible, but when she's reading them out, you can't help but laugh. Some of the shit that's getting said in them. And I like the whole mystery aspect of the film. Unfortunately, I did guess... We do learn about halfway through what is happening. I did guess who this person was going to be sending these letters. But again, it's not like it relies on that reveal, because there is another half of a story to tell after we know that. So it was still fun. Yeah, I thought it was a cool little gem from 2024. I had a fun time with it. And I recommend it if you like these types of British movies, really. That just takes place in this little town. So that is Wicked Little Letters. Next up, I watched Madam Web. I'd heard a lot of bullshit about this movie, and yes, it wasn't very good. I've got to be honest. Man, I can't even hardly remember anything about this movie. Basically, yeah, Dakota Johnson is got this power, and she can... Man, this is going to be a long one. She got this power where she can sort of see into the future, but the way the movie makes her see into the future is so badly edited, it's untrue. Man, I can't even explain it. It's like someone will say something and then she'll hear them say it again. She goes, "Didn't you just say that?" But it was her looking into the future. Like stuff like that. Oh man, this movie's terrible. She's got these little 3 spider girls helping her, and Sydney Sweeney is one of them. There is such a crazy, cringy scene in a restaurant where they're all dancing on a table. Oh man, this movie was just so forgettable. The villain in the film was terrible. Uh, the third act was just felt very 1996. I don't really have anything good to say about this film from memory. It's just it. I watched it a couple of weeks ago, and honestly, I am struggling here. It was just really bad. It really was. Not the worst of the year, but one of them. And it's amazing to me that this had a big budget. And what are Sony doing, man? They've got to really book their ideas up. They're coming out with Across the Spider-Verse and stuff, which is just fucking amazing. And then putting shit like this out. Morbius was the same. And this is really happen. Anyway, that is Madam Web. Next up, I watched Abigail, which is a vampire flick about these characters who basically kidnap this young girl because her father he's a billionaire basically, and they're going to hold her for ransom. And what they don't realize is this young girl is actually a vampire, and she starts taking these characters out one by one. Now, I will say this movie, which is directed by Radio Silence, who made Scream 5, 6, and Ready or Not, they're fun directors, done a good job here. There's a lot of fun factor involved in this movie. However, I do think Twitter and stuff hyped it up a lot. I thought it was fine. I didn't, I thought it was blown way out of proportion that it was best movie of the year and stuff. But it is fun. I mean, Dan Stevens absolutely kills it in this movie. He is such a fun character to be around. Melissa Barrera is a great lead actress. She has shown that many times now. Scream, In the Heights, this. And I like the way the movie has these characters who are a bunch of antagonists, really. Like, they're not really good people. They're criminals. And I like it when movies center around people like that, because you kind of don't know who to get behind. You kind of don't know if they are really going to get even worse throughout the film. But there was some good gore on screen. I like the character of Abigail just taking these people out. I like the way some of the story paths went with certain characters in this movie that you didn't quite know was going to happen. And yeah, it was a fun-filled time. I do think the movie elongates its ending though. Like, it does want one or two twists and turns, and then does about 5 or 6. I mean, it just carries on there. The movie doesn't know when to end. It doesn't know when to stop. But it's still a good time. I do recommend it. I just didn't love it as much as everyone else. That is Abigail. Next up, I watched Infested. This is a French movie that was on Shudder, and this is about a bunch of deadly spiders taking over this apartment block, and these characters have to try and find a way out because it has been cordoned off by the FBI and stuff. Well, not the FBI, but the government basically. It's kind of like the movie Wreck, but not done in found footage, and it involves spiders instead of zombies. That's the best way I can describe this film. Now, there was some creepy moments with the spiders. I am an arachnophobe. I do not like spiders at all, and some of these scenes really made me squirm in my seat. Like, I was looking at the ceiling to see if there's any spiders about or anything, and there's some CGI here, but you don't really notice it because it's only used now and again when there's a bunch of spiders. But when these spiders fill the room and someone's in there, you're like, holy shit, get out of that room now. That's my worst nightmare. There is some great directional shots by the director, Sebastian Vespalis. I might be butchering that name. I know he's doing the next Evil Dead movie, but that fills me with hope because he does some great shots in this movie, especially one that's a spiraling corridor where these characters have to make through this corridor, and there's a bunch of spiders in there, and he kind of spirals the camera around just to show you what they've got to kind of get through. He uses a lot of mirrors in this movie to see spiders coming through vents behind characters and stuff. So I think he directed this film quite well. My biggest problem with it is the characters. They are just not likable at all. They are sort of bickering one another all the time. They are petty thieves. And I just didn't like them, to be honest. I didn't care what happened to any of them. I was more concerned about the older residents in the apartment who you see for like 1 or 2 scenes. I kind of felt bad for them if they were taken out or anything. But it's okay. It's a fine movie. I haven't seen too many spider horror movies before. So it's it's a genre I quite like to get into. I know there's not a lot out there anyway, but we've got Sting coming next month. And Arachnophobia is one that I put on my Blu-ray list now, that I also own a Region 3 player. And after seeing this, got it on the Blu-ray list. So hopefully I'll be picking that up at some point. But that is Infested. Last up, guys, I did watch The Toxic Avenger. Now, Scott, the movie critic, and Nige, and Forgotten World of Movies, Andy, and everyone, I heard them talking about this movie on one of their live streams. And I thought, I've got to watch that shit. And this is on Amazon Prime. I think it's come on Shudder now as well, all 4 of them. I've only seen the first one, though. And this is basically about a guy who works at a gym. He's bullied out of the gym. And as he's bullied out of the gym, he falls into this toxic waste and becomes the Toxic Avenger and goes and takes revenge on the people who wronged them and the criminals in the city. Fairly straightforward concept. But man, this is just one of the craziest, wackiest ass films I've ever seen in my life. My God, I don't even know where to start. This really reminded me of The Greasy Strangler. Like, there's people in the gym just I can't even, the characters in this movie are overacting. And they're doing it on purpose. The movie knows it's totally out there. There are people robbing fast food restaurants in this movie with face paint on it. They're the masks. And then they'll just proceed to rape someone in front of everyone. I mean, 1 minute you're having fun, next minute you're seeing some crazy ass shit. And then you're seeing horrible death scenes. Like, one kid gets ran over in this movie and he's barely alive. And then the characters sort of reverse over his head and splatter his skull over the screen. I'm just like, what the fuck is going on in this movie, man? But it's also a bit of a comedy. There's a voiceover on the Toxic Avenger. It's not really this character speaking. It's just like someone narrating his voice. So, oh man, this is such a funny film. It really was. Like, at one point, he says the main character, the narrator, he goes, like, this is him, and he's a bit of a nerd, and he's in the gym just like that, living his best life. There are characters in the gym doing sit-ups and passing a cigarette to one another every time they do a sit-up. I mean, there's just so much wacky shit in this movie. The Toxic Avenger's mum gets scared when he knocks at the door, so he runs away from home and builds his own house in this wasteland. I could go on and on. There's just so many random, crazy-ass things in this movie. My biggest problem was Amazon Prime's picture quality on this film wasn't very good. So maybe I'll just check it out on Shudder again just to see if it is improved, or pick it up on Blu-ray. But yeah, it wasn't the best picture quality, but it was watchable enough. So that is The Toxic Avenger. I highly recommend you give this a go for something different. Okay, guys, hope you all enjoyed this end of month vlog. Let me know what you thought of these movies, and I'll get back to you all, I promise. Don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe if this is your sort of thing. Hopefully I have a Blu-ray update coming soon and an unboxing from Umbrella Entertainment, which I've ordered, so look out for that. Thanks so much, guys. You take care, and I'll see you on the next video.